Okay, quick, easy, dirty, cheap PowerPoint equivalent presentation on survivalist silver stockpiling. Okay, and I am not talking about major stockpiling. I'm talking about what an individual participant in the survival group or retreat would probably, I would expect to have, I would make as a requirement that you need to have this, bring it to the table, shit hits the fan. This is going to become the mechanism and driving force of our alternative economy. Bitcoin, no. Not Bitcoin, nothing else. Silver bullion, 999, silver rounds, stuff that's been made from a mint. Not the poured stuff, not numismatic stuff, not collector coins, none of that shit. Some of these things can have some collector art value to them. That's great. You want to have varied ones, that's fine too. It is a relatively cheap prep compared to other stuff. And the better times are, the cheaper the stuff gets. When things get economically a little dicey, it goes up. Right now, going into 2017, cheaper than it's been in a long time, and there's no major crisis going on. Good time to buy it. This isn't necessarily something you buy in hard times. It's something you buy in good times with disposable income. And it is simple. There is no learning curve, okay? Easy to buy this stuff. You basically got two major options on buying silver bullion. You buy it at retail, cash, or for any one of numerous sources, or you can purchase it at retail, wholesale. There's a few ways you can buy it at wholesale. Where there's full receipts, where there's a full record keeping. You can use your ATM card, credit card with any number of online bullion dealers who will probably be advertising this here in the video. It depends on who they are. Pretty much you're all about equal. You're basically, it's simple, it's easy. There is no learning curve to buying this stuff, except maybe going through somebody's website. Low priority, not really a crisis thing. I am not pushing this as a right now thing because you need it and the economy is going to collapse next week. I would say that you will get a better deal on it if the prices are low, and then you're done. You've got it. Whenever somebody talks about a currency crisis or banking crisis in the future, if you have enough silver to go through 1 month of your normal expenses, you and everybody like you could re-jumpstart the economy. This has happened in Greece. This has happened in Argentina. If everybody in your block, your building, your circle of people, your village, if you had 1 month's worth of money in silver bullion, you could restart the economy. You could actually replace the cash with silver bullion and everything acts like it always did. The second best thing is it replaces cash. But again, I make a lot of other videos saying you should use cash as much as possible. And if there is a currency crisis, you simply start using the silver as money. The peace of mind you have in that, if your time is money, if you're dwelling on whether or not there's going to be a currency crisis or not, once you have this set up, it's done. There's no learning curve. A little bit of a storage requirement for this brick-sized piece right here that's all taped together. Airtight, watertight, just not really going to be an issue. This is purchasing peace of mind. Once you own this, all you have to deal with is the physical security of the brick. You own this outright. Everything else, when somebody says, hey, buy this policy, buy this stock, well, if the economy goes this way, gold and silver stocks will go another way, and moving it into these stocks is going to get blah, 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 blah. Okay, I've heard the fucking line. Members of my family have lost tons of money doing that crap. That is not something you own. That's an insurance policy on another portion of the ledger economy. You own the bricks of silver, you fucking own it, okay? And it is something that you own. They don't sell you this if somebody is trying to sell you economic insurance. They're always selling something else. They always talk about this. They'll want you to envision gold and silver, but it's not the physical stuff, okay? You have the physical stuff in this amount, then you can handle a currency crisis, okay? Now, what are you going to be spending that on during a currency crisis? A currency crisis will bring about an economic revolution. I'll tell you another thing about currency crisis and economic revolution. They are man-made. Somebody does that shit on purpose, okay? It probably won't be you. This is not enough money or silver. I do not have enough influence in the world to create that major revolution, okay? That's not going to happen. If this happens, it is man-made. Now, when there is a revolution, the social order is upset. Three major things that all people pay on an ongoing basis in order to maintain a social order are rent, taxes, and interest. These are the three major financial functions of an economy in maintaining a social order. And what they spend those rent, taxes, and interest money on, if your landlord goes out and buys a Ferrari for each one of his kids, you know, maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. If you work at the Ferrari dealership and you're going to make a big fat commission on that, then yeah, of course you want them to buy that. If you want them to go on vacation someplace and maybe you own a timeshare condo in Hawaii and you want him to stay at that, okay, yeah, great, send your kids on vacations. Whatever they spend money on is basically a bribe to maintain a social order. I mean, that's what this really boils down to. If you look at all the commentary on YouTube on, you know, how do people leave rental property, who's paying a rent, who's not paying a rent, you know, the big thing is, oh my God, the social order will come apart if, you know, either rent doesn't get paid or rental property isn't available or whatever. It's not even a question of what is this pile of lumber worth, not worth, how much did it cost to build, how much of that cost is on nails and lumber. They never say that. Taxes to the social order, obviously, okay? Interest is to the banking side, the privatized side of maintaining the social order, the corporate privatized side of that. In all these roundabout ways, whether or not the landlords are a collection agent for the bank for the interest, or whether or not there is interest on personal loans to maintain the flow of business. Okay, that's how business loans work. All of these things are going to the cost of the social order. Are you getting what you are paying for? During a man-made economic crisis, you have to make a realistic assessment. Are, you know, the road's still there? Do you still have a place where all the maintenance is covered? The utilities are still on? Are the police still answering 911 calls? Are the fire department in the hospital still open and still running some level of service? If you're getting those things, then guess what? Rent, taxes, and interest are due. If you are not getting those things, if you are denied those things, even if other people are getting them, if you were denied these things, why are you paying for it? Okay, if you aren't given these things, you don't pay for these things. Okay, for example, there have been times where I would continue renting a commercial property, but I'll move out of a residential property and stay in my motorhome. I've done that. Business flow is more important to me than, you know, having an address in a nice neighborhood and then blowing all my disposable income on having an address there. I can put a motorhome on a job site and just live in a motorhome. Okay. Goods, labor, moral obligations remain constant. Okay. The prices can go up and down, but the actual items, they remain constant. You're going to eat a certain amount of food. You're going to use a certain amount of fuel. If your kids, you got to support your kids, well, guess what? That's a moral obligation. That remains a constant, okay? That's a priority. If you're going to pay people to work for you, in our society, in Western society, you got to pay for that. Even in the slave societies, Nobody purchases a slave, basically purchasing all their labor up front. They purchase a slave and then starve the slave to death. That doesn't make any economic sense, even among those people. Exploitation labor, that's another problem, isn't it? And that is where, if you have the ability to pay for these things, and you do pay for them, you're part of the solution, not part of the problem. So don't take any blame for being a prepper who might be paying people in goods, maybe ammunition, maybe silver coins during a shit hit the fan situation. There's a lot of people who don't like the fact that some of these guys that stock up on a lot of guns have every intention of handing them out to people who would defend their property and defend their stuff and be their gang, or they're going to be the warlords somewhere. Well, you better hope that your taxes that pay the police are going to be more effective than that gun nut survivalist down at the end of the cul-de-sac who has 50 AR-15s, and he's going to break guys out of prison and arm those people, and they're going to be his private army. Guess you better hope that it goes your way instead of his way. We'll go to the next video. Alright, so when we talk about economic preparation as survival stuff, okay, I'm not talking about your whole financial profile. I'm not a financial planner. I've dealt with a lot of financial planners. I've dealt with good ones and I've dealt with bad ones. I had the unique opportunity 15 years ago to work in a car business. I sold luxury cars. I sold luxury sports cars in the late 1990s in the San Francisco Bay Area during the height of the dot-com boom. And part of what I did in my job was I did financial profiles on people so that they could get car leases on luxury vehicles. And so a lot of long conversations with financial consultants, people who hired financial consultants, people who hired attorneys and accountants to be their financial consultants. And it was on the higher end. On the lower end, things worked a little differently. That's why on the lower end, they tend to deal with social workers, not financial consultants. And other people may be in the middle, maybe at one end or the other. The Mormon Church had some interesting brochures on this. I think I posted them in another video that I picked up when I went to the Mormon canneries and I was buying survival food, freeze-dried survival food, which incidentally ended up being stolen in a survival retreat takeover years later. The cash that we're looking at from a survival standpoint, you probably want to be in ownership of about 2 days worth of cash at a bare minimum. You probably need enough credit available to you, whether you use it or not. Just keep the card open, pay the annual fee, keep enough credit open to you to cover yourself for 2 paychecks. This is if you change jobs, something happens, you're basically going to be able to go for a couple of paychecks without any real hiccup. You just got to pay the money back later. Savings and investment. Okay, now savings is going to be low volatility investment, stuff that is guaranteed that if you need to cash it out, you will. Investment, profit-based. If gold and silver, if these guys are constantly hawking on the coming economic collapse and you are reasonably well stocked on your survival gold and silver, the question is this a good investment? Is it or is it not? Once you have 6 months worth of money at your lifestyle saved in either money in a bank, money in a stock, something that might take a couple of days to circulate through and get access to. Once you have 6 months worth of money at your lifestyle, then, think about high profit, risky investments. Play the game. If you do not have 6 months worth of money, you probably need to think about lowering your lifestyle. I hate to say it so bluntly. You probably need to lower your lifestyle. I've been homeless, but there's this old Jewish maxim, you could skip a meal, but don't skip your savings. And as a homeless person, I probably had a higher net worth than some homeowners in some of the flyover states. Okay, I look at the real estate, I think about those things, I think about the stuff I have in storage, I think about a vehicle I had at the time. I had a brand new vehicle at the time I was homeless. I had cash, and I used that cash eventually to move to a much lower cost of living area and purchase a home where the mortgage payments were less than I was paying in Marin County to have my stuff in storage and live on the street. And was I like the bum in the gutter? No. I had a nice new car. I drove around. I camped. I've been watching Bayward Boondocker, Easy Guys. But I figured out that if I was going to live in a place where I was paying $2,000 a month rent, I was never going to get ahead. Okay, so you got to have 6 months of money at your lifestyle, and if you don't have that, you got to consider lowering your lifestyle. Investments, profit-based. When you prioritize spending, you just get a sheet. Work out these columns. It may take a few different sheets of paper. Okay? Decide what it takes to be comfortable. Understand everybody likes to be comfortable. Prioritize what, yes, you are comfortable. And then if you have to cut a few things off, if you haven't hit your 6-month goal on savings or anything like that, well, peel back a little bit and see what it takes to be probably comfortable, okay? See what it takes to be probably comfortable at your style, and everybody wants to be in a comfort zone, okay? I don't want to look at the pricing on a menu when I go to a restaurant. I want to look at the food and say, oh, I want this right now, okay? That's normal, okay? Guess what, folks? That's normal. If you are in survival mode, you need to understand there's a couple other things. Where is survival still going to be relatively safe? Or are you struggling? Okay, when we talk about the silver, we're looking at something that falls in a little middle range here. Okay, it's not your cash, it's not your credit, but at some point when maybe you had to dip into your 2 paychecks worth of credit or go into your savings, you got to look at your silver. Okay, and the amount of silver you're going to have is around that 1 month range. This isn't something that you get into as opposed to liquidating some investments, okay? You're going to make a judgment call on that. You also would have to take a look at where you are in prioritizing spending, whether you're in a comfort mode, safe mode, or struggling. If you're struggling, the thing is, the amount of silver that you would use for that is smaller, right? And the question is whether or not you've gotten used to it and you're going to move into a different mode of your financial profile or your lifestyle. That is also a little different from bug out cash, and I think I'm going to talk about that bug out cash in a different aspect of this. Now, in an economic crisis, what are we doing with the silver? Okay, when are you going to use it? What is this going to happen? Well, you're going to use it before your cash runs out. Okay, now if you have savings, all right, little hiccup and correction. Okay, when you would use the silver is when you probably are not able to access savings. Okay, we're talking about a survival tool during a currency or a banking crisis. And that means that you're probably not able to access your savings. Now that takes 2 forms, your investments and, straight up savings account type stuff. The way banks are working nowadays, there's a lot of reasons why they may not give you access to that. It may be in some form that's difficult to get at. You may be one of those people who saves gold. And no, I don't advocate cashing out or spending your gold during a survival crisis situation. There's always going to be that one asshole who thinks that his can of beans is worth your ounce of gold. Don't work that way. And I'll explain that a little bit further down the list. So we're going to talk about when you don't have access to the savings. Now, you may have used it up. There may be a banking freeze. There may be a currency devaluation or money devaluation, something like that going on. And again, this is worldwide advice. This isn't something just for people in the United States. This is relevant if you are anywhere in the civilized or even third world. Okay, it's going to work about the same way. You will break into this before your cash runs out, because you're going to gradually get the people that you do business with on a day-by-day basis accustomed to thinking that you are transitioning to silver. Okay, you are a person who will take care of your bills, you will buy the shit you need, you will ask people to pay you in silver, and you will begin circulating that into the economy. Again, this is during a financial crisis type situation. Now, there is some psychology that goes with this I'm going to get into on the purchase of luxury goods. And that is a question of whether or not somebody's in a position of saying, oh, I can't deal with silver, I got to have a credit card or cash. If that's a situation, then they probably are in a different financial reality than you are, and you're going to have to make some adjustments either to your reality or their reality and come to grips with what the exchange rate is or should be or where that works. You're going to use this as your credit runs out. Again, you don't want to be totally broke and then bam, it's a transition. This is a gradual thing. You start to notice your crash and your credit getting really thin, the cards aren't working, there's a run on the gas stations. You don't use your silver on that, you wipe out the credit. Don't forget, this is an economic crash. That Visa or MasterCard still works in the midst of the economic crash. Keep using those things. Realize you got to pay the money back if the economy turns back on. But as you're getting into the point where that's kind of running out and running low, start using the silver. You need to use it before your food runs low. If there's any kind of an economic crash or stuff going on, you may be hoarding, other people may be hoarding. Again, you're going to get into this silver-based economy before you're starving, before food runs low, before anything becomes the lead or silver treatment in a business transaction. You're going to be using this before fuel runs low. Again, same basic story. When you can buy gas, all that kind of a stuff, that's when you're going to be using it. You'll use it before violence becomes a day-to-day thing. Okay, before violence becomes a part of day-to-day transactions or the threat of violence. Okay, if you're at a point where people are already pulling guns at the market, the convenience store to get in front of line or something like that, you should have already been using silver before that and proving to the people that you're doing business with on a day-by-day basis, hey, you're a paying customer. Okay, you pay for things. You're the guy who's doing that. That way, if anything does turn into one of those situations, your reputation around town, around the area, is you pay for things. You do business, okay? If somebody got stubborn and stupid and said, oh, well, this medicine for your child is going to cost you all the money in your wallet or all the money you have, and you use violence to obtain that, everybody's got to know that you made a cash offer first, okay? This isn't something where you go to the silver as a means of saying, oh, well, we're done being robbers, so now we'll pay for stuff. Doesn't work that way. During travel, but not for location. Okay, this is going to still be a commerce economy even during economic crash. You really, when you travel, you don't clue the people in that you're carrying gold, diamonds, or other valuables. You're going to use silver during travel. When you arrive at your destination and you relocate and you're making big ticket purchases, let's say to get into a home, a business, something like that, you buy that with gold. Okay, the silver is for day-to-day travel expenses. You don't flash the gold during travel because that's when you're going to get robbed. Or be forced into a defensive situation, which is probably going to either make enemies or create a vendetta. It's going to create a vendetta. It's going to create a problem. So use silver during travel. You're going to pay. What else are you going to pay for? Basically, you're going to pay people to do things for you. You'll pay them in silver. they may not be impressed by getting paid in supply. So you're going to pay in silver and allow them to engage in the economy. Okay, they need to feel, if somebody works for you, if they do things for you, they need to feel that you are engaging in an economy, you're engaging in a stabilizing factor in whatever is going on during a crisis. Rent is iffy, but if you're going to pay it, you would pay that out of your day-to-day expenses. This is especially true if you're traveling. You're going to pay a little bit so you don't have trouble, especially if you need precedence over safe space and living space over somebody who can't pay or won't pay. You do not pay for something that everybody else is getting for free. Okay, so you're not paying for, hey, we don't want trouble at the refugee center type thing, unless you're getting some kind of premium space in the situation. Food, you'll use this in food. That's going to be a big deal in these types of situations. Parts, vehicles, probably going to be a high priority, very important thing. You'll need to be able to buy parts for the vehicles. This is especially true with those who are going to be living in vehicles, RVs, boats, ships, anything of that nature. Gasoline, fuel, diesel fuel, all that kind of stuff. That's all going to be bought with this. Now, with firewood, that's primarily a labor thing. It's locally produced, so you'll be paying for that with the silver. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about gold and where that kind of falls into these economic collapse, revolution type things. Understand, these are going to be man-made circumstances. Okay, this is when the economy is happening. It's probably man-made. There are going to be opportunities and sometimes necessity to buy, sell, trade luxury items or items that would normally be luxury items, and you are engaging in an economy. You want to be able to engage in an economy and deal with people and pay for things, and one of them is to broker luxury items. Gold works for major purchases over $5,000. Now, this is especially going to be the case where luxury items cannot be transferred in ownership by ledger. Okay, remember how I talked about in the late 1990s, I sold luxury cars, luxury sports cars for a sports car dealership that dealt in them on a regular basis. Brand new ones, and at the time, there was kind of a renaissance in finance happening in the late 90s with leasing cars. You could lease luxury cars, sports cars, things like that. Expect that not to be the case in a shit hit the fan situation. When there was a mini depression in 2008, a lot of us will remember late 2008, couldn't get stuff financed, couldn't get it leased, anything. I'd gotten back into car sales for a very short time, did very badly with it. We couldn't do any of the kind of financing we'd previously done. And I saw crazy good deals on fast V8 luxury cars. I came very close to just selling a whole lot of stuff that I own, trying to get into a Chrysler 300 Hemi hot rod, everything on it. The guy had spent $60,000 less than 3 years prior. I had the opportunity to buy the car for $20,000, and the deal kind of fell through. Had I been in control of my gold stash at the time, I probably would have made that deal. I probably would have. The situation was not under my control, so I had to pass on the deal. Luxury items are something in which a lot of times, you know, there's desperation, there's greed, there's a lot of psychology in luxury items. Boats all over the map. I've shopped and considered brokering boats as liveaboards in the Portland area, and pricing and value on them is all over the map. A lot of variables, a lot of psychology involved, and in a lot of situations, those can be bought, sold, traded with gold. I mean, it's one of the ways to work with it. And by offering gold on some of these, I can very quickly sort out whether I'm dealing with an authentic seller, desperate seller, casual seller. I can really sort a lot of that out by saying, listen, I can work a barter deal, I can work gold, and because I have gold. You know, if they're telling me that No, I need cash because I've got to pay for something or this or that. Let's talk to another person. Let's find out if that's the truth. If it's straight up, they're going to jump on an opportunity to get gold without having to pay high premiums or taxes or something on that. If they're not authentic, a lot of times they're going to be, or they don't like you personally. If they don't like you personally, you're going to say, I think I want money. I think I want to cash your check. Oh, no, I don't trust your gold. Okay, thanks, pal. You just told me what you thought of me personally. What else are you lying about in the condition of the engine, the condition of the bilge pump, any of that kind of stuff? I'm going to read a lot of that. When we look at luxury items, they always have an unstable value. Gold doesn't. Dollars do, especially during an economic crisis. So if you're holding gold when that kind of stuff is going on, you're holding on to a very solid currency. If it is a situation where there's a lot of psychology and ledger going on, and you're not in that strong of a position holding gold, it's probably not an economic crisis either. Debt settlement at the adjusted ledger value. Argentina, Greece, and to a lesser degree, a few other countries that have been undergoing financial crisis, banking crisis. One of the options that a lot of banks made with settling with people on mortgages was to settle them out in gold at something that was actually a little different from the official exchange rates. Gold is a manipulated currency. They have official exchange rates, unofficial exchange rates, and a lot of those are going to be controlled by the actual availability of the physical metal. And a lot of times during economic crisis with a lot of these banks that want to maintain their international credibility, they are going to be very negotiable with you on those things. So if you want to clear up an old loan or something like that, you can do that. It's also something that you can travel with a fair amount of value, several $1,000s worth of value, inconspicuously, and it is a solid currency no matter where you go. Gems have luxury item pricing, but there is an art and a science to grading and pricing gemstones that pretty much, it's a quirky market, but it is somewhat stable. Is somewhat stable among credible brokers, and the internet makes it better. I personally don't mess with it. I know people who do. And one of your big thing is it's for portable wealth transfer. If you need to move several $100,000 in your pocket on an airplane, you can do that with gemstones. You can do that with jewelry. You can incorporate that stuff into jewelry, wear it. You've transferred a couple $100,000 from one continent to the other. It's just really fickle on the value in the exchange. In the current regular economy, a lot of times you're better off just paying the transfer fees and doing that. I saw a video a few years ago, and I commented on it, on a shootout that took place inside of a Turkish bank because one of the Turkish bankers was basically blackmailing a construction contractor and wanted a $30,000 bribe in order to handle, I think it was a $2 million transaction. That would have been somewhere in the price range and exchange range if somebody had, let's say, purchased diamonds in New York or Amsterdam and taken them to Turkey. The question is, could they be turned into local currency in Turkey and used to pay for local subcontractors? Well, the banker had figured out that would probably cost a guy around $30,000 in profits and losses and whatever, so that's what they're going to charge them to cash your check, basically. And there was a shootout in a bank. You're dealing with big stuff like that. That's just how those big boys rolls. If you're sitting around watching my YouTube videos, that's probably not you. But understand, some people will deal with that. It's a matter of portable, hideable wealth transfer between major capital cities. And it's not something we're really going to deal with. Something that we might deal with, and I'll lead into the next segment here, is bug out cache. And we'll lead that into the next segment. Hopefully you're able to pay attention as I hold the camera and move stuff around here.